Rockets and Knicks were in Game 5 when O.J. started that fateful drive. His four-way hazard lights were blinking, and no one knew what the Jews was thinking.
I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killer. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
This is Oversight Live, your advocate for good governance. We're putting the site back in. Oversight. Here's the watcher on the wall, your host, Ben Carpenter.
Hey, good evening, folks. Good to be with you today. Today's the 4th of February, 2026. And we're going to have a good conversation tonight, I hope. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. What is Oversight Live? It's new. I've only been doing this for a few evenings now in an endeavor to keep doing it here as we have this legislative session progress here in Alaska. Our state capital and our legislature is only accessible by plane or ferry, and it's prohibitively cost expensive, both time and money, for most Alaskans to visit on a regular basis. Providing oversight over our elected representatives and our government is a greater challenge for Alaskans than for most Americans. Oversight Live is your road to Juneau until a real one can be built. A lack of a road is a major inconvenience, but with today's technology, it's no longer a valid excuse for not knowing what's going on. We're going to bring you content, relevant content. There's too much going on in Juneau to bring you everything. So I'm going to use some discernment and bring what I think is most important or up at the top of the list of importance so that you need to know. And that's so that you can be informed and educated. You can see the actual truth, because what we're going to see is the real data, the video and the audio from the meetings down in Juneau. Not the entire meeting, because some of that's not pertinent, but the pertinent stuff I'm going to try to bring to you. You're going to get my bias, but you're not going to get the liberal media bias. Mine's upfront and honest. I am a unabashedly limited government, fiscal and social conservative, and that's the lens by which I'm going to see things. You're free to come and go. You've got the opportunity to engage with me tonight and all the shows. If you're live, you want to have a question or comment, text it in your social media platform and I'll get it. If you have questions during the live show, that's the way to get it. We'll try to answer your questions live if I've got the answers, or if not, we'll search them out. If you're watching the show in the recording, then you can send an email to me. You can go ahead and text in your social media platform there too underneath the video, but it would be easier or better for me to receive your message if you just email me at producer@oversightlive.com. And I'll do the best to get answers back to you. Look, I served 6 years in the legislature, and I don't want that experience to go to waste. I'm going to do my best to impart what I've learned to you so that you're better informed. If you have a good question, there are really good odds that others have the same question. So if you've got a really good question, I'm probably going to use it on air and try to answer it as best I can for the edification of all. So we're going to try to have fun doing this. I'd like to see that public service and civic duty become popular again. I don't know. Maybe that's too tall of a mountain for our public, but I want it to be, so that's what I'm going to try. All right. So what are we going to do tonight? Well, I need to take a step back to a clip that I showed earlier because there's some developments happening in the legislature. I've just had some conversations with folks down there, and we need to have a talk about this. So to tee this up, we're going to see a clip from Senate Resources. And before I do that, I want to show you. You should be able to see share my screen here. So who's in Senate Resources? If you want to go to AKLEG.gov, that's AKLEG.gov. Click on committees, click on standing committees, and it'll take you to a link, and then click on Senate Resources, and you'll get to this place. The membership of the committee that we're going to be watching is here. The chair is Senator Giesel. The vice chair is Senator Wielechowski, and the members are Senator Clayman, Senator Dunbar, Senator Kawasaki, Senator Myers, and Senator Rauscher, new member to the Senate. That used to be Representative Rauscher that I served with in the House. So if you're not aware, Senator Myers and Senator Rauscher are the minority members, and the rest of them, all of the Democrats, are the majority members. Well, I mean, Kathy Giesel is a Republican, but I think has a problem with honesty in that regard. So anyway, that's that. You get to see who we're going to be hearing from tonight. And now I just got to stop sharing the screen here. All right, so let's get to this Senate Resources Committee meeting, and can see what I'm going to bring to you tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this slide and what you just testified to really hits on a core question that we, as a legislature, will need your guidance from, and that is, has this project morphed into something materially different than what was contemplated in Senate Bill 138 back in 2014, such that it needs updated legislative direction? And if
okay, so what's he talking about? He's talking about the LNG project. Senate Bill 138, a number of years ago, passed the legislature. It created AGDC. It created the effort for the state to facilitate the early beginnings of the pipeline and figure out how to get a pipeline built. I'm talking about the LNG pipeline that Glenfarne now owns 75% of and is pursuing to get this pipeline built. So that's what's being referenced here.
And if so, what would you, as our consultant, recommend?
Thank you, Senator Wielechowski. Obviously, there's a lot in that question, which I'm sure will.
For those that aren't looking and are just listening, the voice that you're hearing here is a representative of Gaffney Klein, who is a paid consultant by the Senate Resources Committee. His name's Nicholas Fulford, and he's going to give some testimony here to the committee to answer that question. At the general question in layman's terms is, has the project, as it currently stands with Glenfarne managing it, deviated from the statutory authority granted to the LNG project at its inception through Senate Bill 138?
Will develop and pursue in the coming weeks. But I think you're correct in saying that this slide speaks to a material difference in structure between the SB 138 concept and the ones on the table now. And, even the issue which I alluded to briefly, which is that the government take will change depending on how profit is allocated between upstream and midstream. Even that, I think, requires a fresh look at how the state may wish to approach the question of taxation for the LNG project. And I think there could be a number of changes recommended from how the project was being looked at 10 years ago.
Okay, so here's the deal. What I'm being told is that there may be an effort afoot to scuttle this project before it even gets started. This is what I'm hearing. Time's going to tell. But here's kind of the backstory here and what people should know. If you're not aware, before Glenfarne was granted ownership of the project, there was another group that was trying to put together a claim for ownership or a bid for ownership that was largely the unions in the state. And they wanted an alternative than what ended up with Glenfarne. So they were looking at trying to put all their ducks in a row, find the money, and they would be in charge of moving the pipeline forward. Okay. I have it on good authority that they could not show the money. At the end of the day, they were like, we don't have the money, or something to that effect. Okay. But in the background of this, as Glenfarne is just getting started and ground has not been broken, and maybe we're not too far down the road, maybe folks are still thinking, you know what? Maybe there's a shot that Glenfarne can't get this done. We want it. Senate resources controlled by Democrats, heavily supported by unions. Kathy Giesel, chair, heavily supported by unions. I don't know. But this is what I'm hearing from members down in the Senate, is that this question being asked by Senator Wielechowski is challenging. It appears to be that they're trying to orchestrate a challenge to the authority or the legitimacy of Glenfarne's purchase or contract or agreement arrangement with AGDC for ownership of this project. So I don't know. There's a lot of interrelated things here. There are entities that would benefit from not having a pipeline. You and I would benefit from having a pipeline, but there are entities that would benefit from not having it, and that's specifically companies that don't even exist in Alaska right now. But they do have a subsidiary that exists in Alaska, and this is what I'm concerned about, is what is happening behind the scenes here. NSTAR is the gas supplier for our state, natural gas supplier. NSTAR does not stand to gain from LNG imports, other than it would be receiving profit from what we buy, but it doesn't stand to gain anything from the LNG exports out of Canada, is what I'm trying to say. But NSTAR's parent organization stands to gain if Alaska starts importing LNG, and we do so from Canada, which is the closest source to Alaska. So it kind of makes sense that you would do this. So this is a little bit of the research that I've done. And I think that people need to understand that if there is pressure being applied, that the result or the end state is a scuttling of the project or making it harder for the project, the current Glenfarne LNG project, to move forward. If the legitimacy is challenged, well, then there are players, there are interests that would like to see that happen, that would rather have this expensive project that can't really happen. It's never going to happen. It's too big. It's never happened, so it can't happen. I mean, all of the negative comments that are coming out and doubt being expressed, right? Time will tell. Maybe they're right, but maybe they have a vested interest in it not succeeding. So NSTAR has no stake in Canadian exported LNG. But NSTAR's parent company is Tri-Summit Utilities, a Canadian-based utility holding company, and it's 100% owned by that holding company. Tri-Summit itself is owned by two major Canadian institutional investors, the Public Sector Pension Investment Board, PSP Investments, and Alberta Investment Management Corporation, AIMCO. They are the minority interest holder. PSP is the majority interest holder. So there's no direct ownership of LNG export that I can find, that I understand right now. No direct ownership of LNG export terminals by Tri-Summit or so the parent company of NSTAR or their parent company, PSP Aimco. Okay. But Tri-Summit, NSTAR's parent company, via a subsidiary, their subsidiary, Pacific Northern Gas, PNG, has British Columbia pipeline assets that could see higher utilization from increased Canadian LNG activity. Tri-Summit, again, this is NSTAR's parent company, has no direct stakes in Canadian LNG export, terminals, or liquefaction facilities. Its business is downstream, its distribution and transmission. However, Pacific Northern Gas, its subsidiary, operates pipelines in northern British Columbia that connect to the Canadian LNG ecosystem. PNG has invested in upgrades, increased capacity for supplying gas to micro LNG facilities and potential exports. Higher demand for Canadian LNG would boost throughput on PNG's infrastructure, and that would generate more revenue for Tri-Summit, the parent company of NSTAR. So, TriStar benefits from any successful LNG import strategy that ensures some reliable supply, more reliable supply of Canadian exported gas being purchased, LNG being purchased, stabilizes their operations, They're a Canadian company that's exporting that LNG. Of course, they want to sell it. They want somebody to say it. But Alaskans are not. This isn't something that's being discussed in Alaska. Like when people are saying, "Hey, we don't believe that the pipeline can be built." Are they saying that because they really believe that the pipeline can't be built, or are they saying it because there's a vested interest somewhere down the line of it not getting built and importing LNG instead? So Aimco, Tri-Summit's owner, direct exposure to the coastal GasLink pipeline, their investment in that means higher pipeline throughput improves returns for Aimco. So that's Tri-Summit's parent company, owner. PSP, which is the other owner of Tri-Summit, it has broad infrastructure and investments, including pipeline and energy assets, but it's not has no direct stake in this. So from what I can tell, NSTAR's parent company, Aimco, is the one that would stand to benefit if NSTAR began importing LNG from Canada into Alaska. Okay. So maybe it's unrelated, maybe it's related, but if you don't have a pipeline, if there's some reason why we can find that the pipeline can't happen, if we can just make it too expensive, then the only alternatives we have for natural gas in South Central Alaska, the only alternatives currently would be to find it in Cook Inlet or import it. And currently, NSTAR is working to research the importation of LNG and has partnered with Glenfarne to put together an LNG terminal, import terminal. And they're asking the RCA, the Regulatory Commission of Alaska, to allow them to socialize the costs. And when I say socialize, what that means is allow them to charge ratepayers an additional sum in order to recover the costs of that research and development and ultimately of building the pipeline, or not, I'm sorry, not the pipeline, the import facility. So this is maybe somewhat separate from, but maybe related to the whole conversation of is the pipeline too expensive? Is it something that we can do, right? What happens if the state of Alaska, the legislature decides, yeah, we want our fair share in royalties and taxes, and we're not interested in bringing those down. Canada, in order to get their pipeline and export facility functional, had to take a chill pill. They had to reduce their appetite for how much government take was going to be. And that's what enabled them to get their export facility on the West Coast. If the legislature just doesn't play ball and we keep our tax rates high, then perhaps it scuttles the project. Who benefits when the project gets scuttled? It's NSTAR's parent company that's going to export LNG to Alaska. And the RCA has a decision to make that's related to this as to whether to allow NSTAR and potentially its parent company to socialize the costs of building the LNG terminal, a brand new one, or if they're, you got two different terminal ideas going on here through Hillcorp wants to refurbish the one that exists in Nikiski, and Glenfarne and NSTAR want to build a completely new one. So Glenfarne probably also, but NSTAR's wanting to be able to socialize the costs of building that new facility, new import facility. So if somebody can just manufacture from NSTAR and from Canada's perspective, if somebody can just manufacture a reason for why the gas pipeline in Alaska should not be built, then the most logical conclusion here is that NSTAR starts importing LNG from Canada. So why in the world would Alaskans subsidize that private company and those companies over in Canada? Why would we subsidize the creation and the building of the import facility through the RCA allowing that cost to be passed on to ratepayers? Why would we? Well, there's really one good reason. If we don't, there is risk that NSTAR says, you know what, this is not feasible anymore. I don't have a supply of gas, reliable supply of gas from Cook Inlet, and maybe we just pull up shop and stop operating in Alaska. I don't know. That seems kind of far-fetched and bold and worst case scenario thinking. But that's what you get with a regulated utility. If the regulated utility can't do business, then it just doesn't do business. It's the same thing if you didn't have the RCA and NSTAR was not regulated and it couldn't find buyers at the price that it could sell gas, LNG, and be imported LNG and be profitable, then it wouldn't build it wouldn't build an import facility. So my guess is the RCA is going to allow the socialization of the costs of developing the pipeline. I'm sorry, I keep saying pipeline, of the import facility. This is a conversation that's separate from the pipeline, the Glenfarne pipeline. The two could happen simultaneously. You could have the import facility being built while the pipeline is being developed. But I think there's some political pressure within the state of Alaska and those, especially outside in Canada, that would like to see the pipeline not happen. And Canadian companies, NSTAR, would all benefit if Glenfarne were to not be successful in building a pipeline. I don't know, folks. You look back at the opportunity for finding natural gas in Cook Inlet. There's gas out there. It's expensive to go get. The alternative right now is not gas from the North Slope because there is no pipeline. There aren't ships that can bring LNG from the North Slope down to us. There's no connection to natural gas anywhere else other than Cook Inlet for South Central Alaska, for the rail belt. Okay? Well, not even Fairbanks in the interior. You don't have natural gas from Cook Inlet. We ran the producers out of Cook Inlet. We, the people of Alaska, ran the producers out of Cook Inlet. Why did we do that? Why can I make such a bold statement? Truth hurts, right? We put in place this Regulatory Commission of Alaska, the RCA. And the RCA's purpose is to make sure that we don't get gouged by those evil oil and gas companies. Okay? So when the gas company says, hey, I need to raise my rates, or the utility says we need to raise our rates because we got to go find gas and it's expensive, and the RCA says, oh no, we got to keep the rates down because that's what the people want. This regulatory authority, meaning the government involvement and not allowing the private sector, the free market, to solve this problem on its own, that regulatory environment is what caused developers, natural gas developers, to leave, because they cannot, the free market, the cost of gas, the cost to go and produce it is higher than what they could sell it in Alaska. And so they just chose to go somewhere else and produce gas. Our demand for this low-cost energy was short-sighted. Because now we're facing a point where the jobs that would exist in going and getting natural gas from Cook Inlet, those jobs are going to exist in Canada because we're going to start importing LNG from Canada. We're going to be supporting Canadian natural gas producing jobs. Would the cost be similar for paying imported LNG now as it would be paying for local natural gas? Like, the point is, we found ourselves in a position where, because we wanted this regulated environment that was maybe kept the price artificially low for natural gas for us, we're now faced with a situation where we can't produce natural gas for ourselves, low cost or high cost. We aren't producing it. There aren't producers enough to drill the wells and find the gas sufficient enough for our economy. And now we're going to be paying high prices to import it. We just don't benefit from the jobs. I mean, there'd be some jobs at the import facility. But we're purchasing something. We're purchasing a commodity and importing into the state of Alaska, and our dollars that we're paying for that are going out of the state of Alaska. The prosperity that represents is going out of Alaska because we can't figure it out how to produce the commodity that we need here. Collectively, we can't figure it out. So we're going to be dependent on somebody from outside the state of Alaska for our heat. That's what's at risk here if the legislature screws this up, this pipeline deal up. If Kathy Giessel, Senator Giessel, and Senator Wielechowski have got ulterior motives to scuttle this project, that's what's at risk. I don't have any proof. I don't have any proof yet. Time will tell. But you see an argument being made in the legislature that we can't drop our tax rates. Alaskans demand that we get our fair share of natural gas royalties and taxes. And we cannot afford. Look at the budget crisis that we have. We cannot afford to drop our tax rates to where industry is requesting we set them so that their project is profitable. Those evil profit companies, you can't trust them. Trust the legislature. We're going to get as maximum dollar that we can out of taxes and royalties. You can trust us. Don't trust those private sector companies because, they're just there to make money. This is what's at stake. If you're not going to have a natural gas pipeline a Glenfarne pipeline, if that's going to get scuttled, then what you're going to have is Instar imported natural gas from Canada. And you'll be back to paying high price gas, high price electricity. Just like you would be if you were paying for high price gas coming out of Cook Inlet, except your neighbors don't have jobs. That money's not staying in Alaska. So I would hope that people who are interested in seeing the pipeline happen, even if you're skeptical, you reach out to your legislator and you say, I don't know what's going on down there. I don't know what theories you're bringing up, what legal challenges you think you're going to bring up, but you better not be scuttling any opportunity that exists to get this natural gas pipeline built. If Senate Bill 138, which was the enabling statute, no longer applies because things have shifted. And let me back up and explain this a little bit. And I'm going to go off of memory here, so it's going to be in layman's terms. Senate Bill 138 said, we want this type of a project where the state has ownership. Okay. Is that simple enough? You got all these different factors that go into what type of project that they want. And for a decade, nobody in the private sector said, okay, we'll take you up on that. Now Glenfarne's got a different model. AGDC said, hey, you know what? We got somebody that's interested. We got a private company that's interested. They've got the capital. They've got the experience. We're going to make an arrangement, an agreement with them, and they're going to take over the project. They're going to put their capital at play, and they're going to take the risk. It's not a state ownership project anymore. Legislators now look at that and say, well, it's not a state-owned project. We wanted a state-owned project. Well, it's great to want in one hand, and you got nothing in the other hand, because what you wanted, nobody else in the private sector, nobody else in the economy wants to do. So you want something that's not possible. What you have is possible. What you have right now is what's possible. So before the legislature gets high and mighty, or certain senators get high and mighty about we're outside the scope of 138, then what they ought to be doing is saying, okay, well, what authority how do we fix the statute so that this pipeline goes forward and the authorities are proper? If what you hear is that we can't do that, and whatever conditions get set, whatever happens to scuttle the project, then you ought to be aware that there are people that don't want to see the project happen, do not want to see the pipeline happen. There are others in the state who have a vested interest in it not happening. It's really some short-sighted people out there. I don't know. I don't know if you can label it, boiling it down to human nature, whether this is just greed. I don't know. Right now I'm speculating on conversations that I've had with individuals down in the legislature. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Senator Wilkowski couched his question on the record very good. Like his focus was on what can we do, or is there something going to need to be necessary for us to change the statute in order to make it right? That's in essence what he was saying. Okay, yeah, I get that, but I also can read between the lines. And now what I'm hearing is that there may be an effort to try to scuttle the project. I hope it's not true. I really, really hope it's not true. But there are people with ulterior motives that would like to see and who would financially benefit if we do not have a successful natural gas pipeline. So you want to call Me, a conspiracy theorist? You want to say I don't know what I'm talking about? Well, time will tell. If I'm wrong, the pipeline goes through, and I get what I want. I want to see the pipeline happen. I think we're going to be importing LNG regardless because we don't have any alternatives. So in the meantime, in the short term, we're going to be importing LNG. We'll probably be importing it from Canada. But the long-term plan for the state of Alaska needs to be a pipeline from the North Slope to get that natural gas to Tidewater and get it exported for the benefit of all Alaskans. That's the long-term thinking. That's the long-term thinking that benefits Alaska. So, I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. You come back and point the finger at me and say, hey, you worried about nothing. Okay, well, yeah, sometimes that happens. I'm okay. If the project's being built, I'll eat crow. I'll be fine with that. But if it comes to pass that we're going to have conversations about why we can't have a reasonable tax rate that is in line with the finances of the project, and I'm all in support of the legislature understanding appropriately what the finances are for the project. Glenn Farn's got to come to the table and give what's necessary for the legislature to make a good, well-informed decision. That is necessary. But that needs to be done in good faith by Glenn Farn and by our legislature. So those who would like to see the pipeline not get built, you got to know they're out there and they're influencing right now. So anyway, it's a little rushed coming into the meeting day because this conversation and this is just, freshly developing, and tried to pull all this together to try to articulate it to you as best I can. So what are we going to see in the future? We'll see resources committees in the House and the Senate discussing tax proposals. We'll see finance committees in both discussing tax proposals because those are going to have to happen. And you better pay attention to who's making an argument that the state can't lower its tax expectations. It's unreasonable for Alaskans to lower our tax expectations because that's just giving more profit to those guys. It's just Alaska's getting screwed if we don't lower our taxes. Okay, well, are you on that side that thinks the pipeline shouldn't be built? Because Canada got theirs built and they had to lower their taxes to do so. So let's let the data go where the data needs to go. Let's see it. Let's make sure we're making good decisions. And I hope that the legislature and Glenn Farn all act in good faith with each other to come to a resolution of this. All right. Let me jump over here. I have been on a soapbox here. Let's see. Good evening, Tawny. Not of interest to me to have the unions involved. Yeah, I think it's a long shot now. Although if they can scuttle the project, maybe they've got a better alternative, right? I mean, they couldn't come up with the money beforehand, but maybe they do now. Corey Millington. Corey? Absolutely. Greed seems to be a high point on all levels. Sadly, it doesn't appear that some in the legislature don't want improvements in our state. Oh, they want improvements, Corey. They want improvements. They want improvements in state government. The government is the economy. I have literally had more than one legislator tell me that. They're like, what do you mean the private economy? The government is the economy. Literally, the government is the economy. Those are the words that came out of their mouth. I'm like, I don't know where to go here. Like, all right. We will see more spending on studies of the study of the study in the future. Yeah, I mean, that's bureaucracy for you, right? If the prudent legislator doesn't put their foot down and demand some accountability, then yes, people make money doing studies. There's a lobby out there that makes money doing studies for legislators who don't think they have the correct data to make decisions. And maybe they can just kick the can down the road. The last show that I did was on the pay and compensation pay system, right? And we're doing a study of a study. It's ridiculous. Anyway, well, thanks all for participating today. I think we're going to call it an evening. You can have the rest of the hour to yourself, and we'll see you again tomorrow night. If I have more updated information on this hot topic, then I will certainly bring it to you. Until then, I wish you the best. Have a good night.